I'm addressing this message primarily to the Society of Environmental Journalists in New York City. First of all, the two prominent methods of brainwashing that have prevented people from a legitimate conversation is, first of all, political correctness, and second of all, being told that Americans are exceptional, which tends to make people arrogant. When you're arrogant, you don't like to be told that you're making a mistake, even if the mistake is suicidal, literally suicidal. So when you destroy the environment, and the message that just got through was Hurricane Sandy, and the one before that was the drought that wiped out the corn and soybeans and other crops this summer, and the fact that the coral reefs are about half wiped out, and the fact that we know the ice has melted considerably over the last couple of decades, and the fact that the bugs in the northwest forests have destroyed the forests. Okay, I don't know how much more evidence anybody would actually need to understand that we're committing suicide. Now, if you realize you're committing suicide, you would think that people would try to prevent that from happening. But that's not happening. So, where do we go? Well, first of all, what's the remedy? It's hydrogen fuel cells. Hydrogen fuel cells are being sold to Korea and Germany, big time. These are American-made products that have been completely tested and work. And they're being completely ignored by the Department of Energy. Secretary Chu, supposedly a wizard scientist, when he says all of the above, that does not include hydrogen fuel cells. Well, what needs to be done is all of the above need to be completely dropped in lieu of hydrogen fuel cells. And the reason that they keep saying all of the above is because that's where the bribes come from. The coal, the oil, and the nuclear power. You know, it's amazing that people would actually believe that there's no CO2 generated by nuclear power. How do we get uranium? We mine it. Well, you can't mine uranium without generating massive amounts of CO2. So how is it possible they can keep claiming that nuclear power generates no CO2 and nobody, and I mean nobody but me, ever disputes that? That's pretty ignorant. So this is the problem here. And this is why I'm trying to address this in a straightforward manner. And let me tell you this. I've addressed people that call themselves liberals and progressives and environmentalists, and they get angry as hell because they don't want to hear direct speech. That's because their brain is completely controlled by political correctness. Now, if you want to see people debate without political correctness, turn on ESPN2 between 10 and 12 and listen to a program called First Take. Just so you know, these people have arguments, And they don't say, oh, I agree with you, and I agree with this one, and I agree. No, they don't agree, okay? They have arguments. They have a debate, and they lay it out, and it's fascinating. So if you want to see it in action, try it. Now, I'm going to send this to the people in this meetup group, the environmental journalists, because if they wake up to what I'm saying about hydrogen fuel cells, which happens to be the only remedy available, which, by the way, can never happen unless the government makes it happen. It can't happen by free market forces. And here's why. Nobody's going to buy a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle if there's no hydrogen fuel for sale. And there's not going to be any vendors selling hydrogen fuel when nobody owns a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. So that's a stalemate, you see. Now we know for a fact that leaded fuel was ended by the government. I don't hear anybody whining about it, you see. So this is the only way it can be done. And if this group of journalists start to approach their audiences directly with the facts, so that people begin to wake up and know that this is suicide, okay? And it has to be compared to the terrorist scare and the 9/11 Bush attack, which I can prove, and I mean prove with evidence. Because let's face it, the entire crime was filmed. So all you have to do is look at the pictures to see the explosions that blasted the buildings right down on top of 2,700 people, including the 342 firefighters and other first responders that were in those buildings to try to, that would have saved almost all of the people. Now also, Flight 77 did not hit the Pentagon. And there was a federal case by a woman who worked in the Pentagon named April Gallup that was dismissed in the Southern District of New York by Judge Denny Chin, who was then promoted to the Second Circuit. And the appeal to the Second Circuit after Chin dismissed the case was in New Haven, and I was there. And guess who was on the panel? John M. Walker Jr., who I'm sure you don't know, is George Bush's cousin. And Ralph K. Winter, who is also the most wicked guy on the Second Circuit, along with John M. Walker. So, if you understand what I happen to know about from actual experience in dealing with the Southern District of New York and the Second Circuit, I can prove what I'm saying are facts. They're not opinions. So I also want you to know that I have a federal case right now in the District of Connecticut, which is also based on 9/11. In fact, I was arrested because I was explaining 9/11 to the captain of detectives in Bridgeport, who invited me to his office. And 2 weeks later, I was arrested on a completely false charge, which took 1 year before they finally dismissed it. And that is the purpose or the impetus of the federal case that I now have the Connecticut state attorneys in federal court. So this is a very fascinating story that you journalists need to follow, because it goes hand in hand with the suicide that we are all being led into by the money, by the bribes from the oil, coal, and nuclear power industry that go to Obama and the entire government. And that's what all of the above is all about. And that's why they never mention hydrogen fuel cells. Okay? So there's a real upside to what I'm saying. So if you get angry, you're just screwing yourself. And I'm going to tell it to you straight out. I have no diplomatic ability whatsoever. I am not politically correct. I have no intentions of becoming politically correct. So let's see where we go from here. Thank you for your time.